So it's again the same thing we have faced so many times. There is a very substantial study being done with clear results, very clear. And it seemed nobody has ever read it. They were just trying to inform us that everything is good. This is all good. There's enough water for everyone, even though the study proves there isn't enough.
I'm here together with Shushica from Albania and Uli Eichelmann from Riverwatch and myself, Annette Spangenberg from Euronatur. And we are here today to talk about a report which was just launched beginning of this week, which addresses construction works along the Shushica. The Shushica itself is it's a tributary to the Vjosa. And the Vjosa River was just less than 3 years ago proclaimed as Europe's first wild river national park. Stunningly, only less than a year after that groundbreaking event, we learned that construction works were going on at the Shushica River for water abstraction. And we raised, as nature conservation NGOs, we raised red flags against that project because we are convinced that even if the construction works are taking place outside the national park, they will severely impact the ecological integrity of the Vjosa and hence the Vjosa Wild River National Park. Coming to my first question in this regard, Uli, could this report be a turning point and why should the world care about it?
Well, it certainly should be a turning point in this project because this report done by the IUCN is the most comprehensive assessment of the project itself and the consequences that would have it would be implemented. Basically, this, who the IUCN is, I don't know if everybody knows who they are. The IUCN is kind of the global organization about the natural world. It's the mother of all protected areas and the red lists globally. And it is the best group to get involved in this, to modify this complex conflict. And this report, I went through it, is really based on the latest scientific data, and it offers solutions. And the best solution they have, after all this assessment involving all the science we know, is to avoid the project and to use alternative water resources instead. They found additional spring waters outside the boundaries of the national park. And they could be easily used to fulfill the purpose of the coast. That I don't know if everybody knows, but this whole project of water abstraction from the national park, from the Shushica, is to divert the water and transfer it to the Mediterranean coast, to a region called Himara in Albania on the southern coast, to fuel mass tourism. And they take it they want to take it from this newly established, as you said, Wild River National Park. And that is you don't do that. You have a national park for natural processes and not to go on as you plan. And the IUCN said, no, you don't even need to do that. It's not even necessary because there are alternatives. It's one of the key findings, and that supports position of all of us from the beginning.
Okay, yeah, thanks for making that more clear to all of us and also our audience. But to me, it sounds like also in the light of climate change and increasing water scarcity, that a lot is at stake. And also for communities in the Shushica Valley, it sounds to me that this isn't just about ecology, it's about survival. Can you paint the picture for us? What is at stake for the locals if this project happens with mitigation or offset procedures?
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. Shushica is, even with the name, it's a temporary river. That's the meaning, of the name of that river. So, which means that there are so fragile ecosystems that any little diversion on the water, it can have a crucial impact, especially in the first 5 to 10 kilometers from the intake or from the source, and of course also to the confluence with the Vjosa. So they're very delicate ecosystems that definitely should be really carefully assessed. And as you said, it's very much linked with the climate change as well. So it is enough to say that there are so many villages and so many local communities that they cannot use currently, as we speak, the water of the Shushica because there is simply not enough water. And if you imagine if a certain amount of water is being taken away from this project. And of course, local communities have stood up, have opposed these projects since the very beginning. They have been very outspoken. They have been publicly opposing in the protests in the streets. They have tried to reach out to all the relevant authorities, starting from the ground level through the mayors, through the municipalities, up to the president of the republic over the last year. And they are seeing also the litigation, so they are addressing the case in the court. So basically, what we say is that, or what we do is just supporting the local community because we think that they are right on their claims, and the right for the water is amongst the human rights in the end of the day.
Thanks, Ossi. So I understand that prior to the beginning of the construction works, the local communities weren't consulted properly. Wasn't there any public participation process?
Not really, because it's like most of the cases in Albania. We have faced this also in the past when we were opposing the dam construction in the Vjosa. So basically, the local communities are the very last ones to get informed on these sort of projects. And they have been as part of the process because, the founder of the project is the KfW, and they do have their own performance standards. So the project must go through these participatory processes. But actually, it has happened like the Albanian model of the participation on the consultation. Basically, the communities that have been consulted or somehow consulted have been the community that are about to benefit from this project. So basically, they have been made just meetings. There have been organized meetings in Himara and in some other villages, which are amongst the beneficiaries of the project, but the ones that will suffer the effects of this project, which are the communities starting from Kuch village all along to the Shushica. They've never been consulted. They've never seen any from the developer, from the government, from the local authorities, from the founding institutions as well, until just a few months ago, when I can call it, there was the normal public hearing. But we are talking that this public hearing, where all these stakeholders that I mentioned have been sitting in one table, it has happened just in December 2024, while the project has started 1.5 years, the construction phase. Planning phase has started in 2019. So as you see, this is the way how public consultation are being organized and are taking place in Albania. And that's really unfortunate because the KfW and also the European money are involved to find this project. And it's really unthinkable how they break their own rules and regulations when it comes to the performance standards and when it comes to the respect of the local communities.
It's quite interesting for our audience to maybe get some insights of that meeting. Uli, what happened during that meeting and what did the participants there say about the report's recommendation?
Well, let me say first that it was an invitation of the German embassy in Tirana, and they invited all the groups, the Albanian Environmental Ministry, the Albanian Development Fund, who is the investor, and NGO participants. So that was a good move to inform us, but they wanted to inform us about an agreement that had been taken before between the Ministry for Development in Germany and the Albanian Environmental Ministry. That meeting was, for me, it was a good purpose, but in the end, it was like so many times I have seen in Albania. They were just trying to inform us that everything is good, especially the Albanian participants from the Albanian development, for basically saying everything is under control. the report is so great, but it's completely in our favor. So it's again the same thing we have faced so many times. There is a very substantial study being done with clear results, very clear. And it seems nobody has ever read it. And they just say what they think. So they basically said, yes, we agreed to do the minimization scenario, where this is the second one. So between, avoiding and offsetting. But they just put out little pieces of that scenario and said, this is it. They said, we will go ahead now. We will divert the water. We will do studies while we are going to construct and finalize this report. But, this is all good. There's enough water for everyone, even though the study proves there isn't enough. And it also says, because you mentioned climate change, it clearly shows that the prediction is until 2050, 30% less water in the river. So, and that water has to stay for the national park and for local communities and not for something far away, if there are alternatives even. But it was, again, frustrating for us to see, I think, or even emotionally motivating, I think, after that meeting, to see that the fight is not over. They're so stubborn. They are really not looking at the facts. They're ignoring the facts, and they want to keep going. And it's up to all of us, I think, to hinder them, and to keep going, because we have more knowledge now. The study 100% supports our position and the position of the locals, but it seems they're ignoring that and then try to keep going.
Ossi, Uli and I, both of us participated online. You were the only one in the room. How did you perceive the atmosphere of that meeting?
The atmosphere was not much different that you can felt online. The main takeaway from that meeting for me was that either the Germans are Albanized in a way, or I don't know how to call it either, because it's the repetition again and again in the same mistakes. This project has, in the very beginning, started on the wrong foot, because this has started based on the very old data, not scientifically based data, and that was just, that's water here. We can set the intake, and then we just grab the water and divert it away to the Himara municipality. But how much do we get? And then the water permit was stating that they are allowed to take 140, closely 139 basically, liters per second from the main spring. And then when the concerns of the local communities and ours rise enough, they said, okay, but let's conduct some studies on the ground, because all the other papers and assessments, starting from the EIA feasibility study, consultation process, stakeholder engagement, they were just papers made on the desk in the distance from Tirana. So no touch-based assessment. And then they found out that simply there was not enough water. And then, okay, we will be a little bit more generous now. In order to mitigate, we will not take 140 liters, but we'll take 100. And this is simply because that is the maximum amount of water that exists, flows, in the river, and that's why they are reducing it. And it has been a long and a really, really comprehensive effort from all the experts of the IUCN. And this is a good study, a good quality study. And they were just ignoring for nothing. They're just ignoring, living there in the corner of a desk. And they said, okay, we will conduct new studies. And, I got used so many years in Albania to hear all these stories. But what really frustrated me was that these stories are really supported and backing up by Germans. And this is what I don't get it. That was the feeling.
So we're facing another version here. And I agree that Germany and the Western Balkan Investment Framework, that's an EU foundation, is also involved in the funding. They must stay stable here and saying, no, we did this study and you have to fulfill this. They can only, I think they legally, and they can only push or recommend in the end, it's Albania, the Albanian government, who has to decide. Let me say last thing. They did this, and we all know it was a long battle, and everybody's proud of the Wild River National Park in Albania. They use it a lot to promote their country, their green, their sustainable, it's all about this concept of Wild River National Park is all about a connective river net. The Shushica and the tributaries are a crucial part. If what you do to the small part of the national park, you do in the end to the big one. That's the concept. And that's what Albania is proud of. And it's devastating to see, on the one hand, that after a year of celebrating the inauguration, they start nagging and, reducing the quality. But on the other hand, I say, okay, our job never ends. We have to continue. It's really worth fighting for. This is extraordinary, valuable land, and a great idea and a great concept. And I'm ready to continue.
Definitely. The Vjosa, Wild River National Parks, the Shushica, and all other tributaries, as well as the Delta, they deserve to be protected, and they deserve that we stand up against economic interests and for ecological integrity of the whole river system of the Vjosa. Guys, we've got 30 seconds each. Give me one reason to hope and one thing viewers can do today. Come on.
Well, it's, there are
it's already 10 seconds.
Multiple reasons to hope, because we really came a long way. I think that this is just another battle that we have to win. And what I would ask the audience is, especially the German audience, they have to stand up and they have to claim from their German authorities how their money are being invested. That's my message.
Yeah. My hope is very similar. Nature protection, nature conservation, what we do wherever we do that is a constant fight. And I would rather say that on the Balkans, and in particular in the Vjosa Basin, I would say we were extraordinarily successful by, not giving up, by being stubborn, stay and hope, continue the fight. And I think we have to win this Vjosa Wild River National Park several times in the future. And so far, we mostly won them. I really, you never know, but you never know. Can we win?
Thank you very much, Ossi and Uli, for this nice exchange. And though I'm familiar with the topic, there is always new aspects coming up in such conversations. So thank you. Thank you to our audience.
Thank you, Annette.
I very much hope that we could take you a bit deeper into the matter. I know it's rather complicated with a lot of technical aspects to it, but please continue to follow the story, spread the word, and continue to support us in our fight for the protection of the whole Vjosa River system.